11:03, Tuesday, February 4th, 2025, live on KDUS AM 1060, the KDUS AM 1060 app, and yes, the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel. Welcome in to today's edition of The Lunch Break. Chris Schubert with you for the next 2 hours as the NBA trade deadline draws closer and closer. The Suns continue to play basketball games. The Suns continue to be in the news, both good, bad, and ugly. Producer Corey back at the KDUS studios. For those of you watching on YouTube, you'll notice a little different setup here today. I'm home, the home studio. This is how you know you've become a radio host, Producer Corey, because I have equipment here. I'm all alone. I've had to push buttons. We're okay right now. Things seemingly are okay. I'm connected to you. You can hear me. I can hear you. Things are good. So why don't we keep that train going and we get started with today's Daily Special. On the night in which Devin Booker becomes the Phoenix Suns franchise leading scorer, the Suns lose in overtime 121-119 to the Portland Trail Blazers. And I got to be honest with you, everybody. I don't know what to make of this team anymore. I don't know what to make of a team that got 86 points from the big three and still lost in overtime. I watched a game last night in which the Phoenix Suns had everything to play for. They had everything to redeem themselves from. We spent yesterday's show telling you an opportunity for quick revenge. How often do you get a chance to immediately avenge, unless it's a playoff series, a loss to an opponent? The Suns had that chance last night. They had a chance to start a week, a very important week, a week in which we told you Oklahoma City is right around the corner, a matchup with Denver later this week. Portland and Utah were the two games that you have to get in order to keep this season alive. And I ask you this question. Which team last night in that basketball game looked like the team that was competing for their playoff life? Which team last night played with the energy level that mirrored a team that might be making a big splash before the trade deadline on Thursday? Which team played like their season hangs in the balance every single night and they need to give 110%? Which team was it? Because for me, it wasn't the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns didn't play like a team that is holding on to one of the last play-in spots in the Western Conference. The Phoenix Suns didn't play like a basketball team that is potentially going to mortgage their future even further than they already have to go out and get Jimmy Butler. They looked like a team that was 9 games below 500. They looked like a team that was 13th in the Western Conference. But that was Portland last night. Portland walked into that game last night 20-29. Portland walked into that game last night 9 games below 500 and 13th in the Western Conference. Nowhere near the play-in tournament, nowhere near being relevant in the Western Conference power structure, which it's just a war, right? All of these teams, Houston, Oklahoma City, Dallas, the Lakers, Memphis, Denver, you name it, Golden State, all these teams that are still trying to be relevant. Portland, they're not even in that tier. They're just kind of just playing good basketball, playing solid basketball, but they're not there yet. They're a team in transition. They're a team still trying to find themselves. And yet last night, I saw a team that had more fight. I saw a team that was playing with more energy. One of my main takeaways from the basketball game last night should not be that on a night in which the big three combined for 86 points, 27 from Kevin Durant, 34 from Devin Booker, became the all-time leading scorer in Suns franchise history. Bradley Beal added 25 off the bench. I should not feel that on a night when that happened, that the Portland Trail Blazers had a player in Denny Avdija who scored 24 points, and I watch that player and say, man, the Suns could use a guy like that. Big three combined for 86. The Phoenix Suns have Kevin Durant. They have Devin Booker. They have Bradley Beal. And I found myself watching somebody on the other team saying, man, the Suns could use a guy like that. They could use a guy that provides that type of energy, that provides that type of excitement, that plays with an energy level that you can see is contagious to the rest of his team. You can see that Tamani Kamara, Jeremy Grant, Simons, Ayton, everybody feeds off of the energy that Denny Avdija provides. And the Suns don't have that guy. Where's their energy coming from? I've never been more frustrated watching a basketball team than I was the Phoenix Suns last night, because despite the 11 first-half turnovers, they were 10 of 20 from three-point land and had the lead going into halftime. I didn't feel like watching the first half that was a team that should have been in the lead. Yet they play that way because of the pure talent that they have, because they have a Kevin Durant, because they have a Devin Booker, because they have a Bradley Beal, because they have the pure talent, they can stay in these games. And then they proceed to go 5 of 22 in the second half from behind three-point land, and they just don't play with an energy. It just feels stale. It's not enjoyable. And the way the game ends last night, on a night in which Devin Booker becomes the Suns' all-time leading scorer, and we're going to unpack that a little bit later on here in the program. On that night, the one free throw that Devin Booker misses is the free throw that could have sent this game into double overtime, and that's the takeaway. The takeaway is, on the night that Devin Booker becomes the all-time leading scorer, he makes the critical mistake. On a night in which the Suns needed to get a victory against the Portland Trail Blazers, it's DeAndre Ayton again having a huge night, going 25-20 to beat the Phoenix Suns. A chance for revenge. The Phoenix Suns don't get anything else outside of the big three. Those are the takeaways. That's how we feel today going in to the trade deadline in 2 days. Which team last night was fighting for a playoff spot? Which team last night felt like they were a team in transition? Which team last night felt like they were the team that was rebuilding? It was a complete role reversal. If you did not know anything about the Phoenix Suns season, and if you didn't know anything about the Portland Trail Blazers, and you wiped away their records, and you just watched the effort level, and you just watched the energy that the team played with last night, both teams played with last night, you would have said that Portland is the team trying to hang on for a playoff spot. That you would say that that team is the team that needs every single one of these games, that needs to win at home. And you would say the Phoenix Suns are a team. If you knew nothing about Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and how great they are, you would have said that that is the team that is in transition, that is the team that is in rebuilding, and yet is the complete opposite. Think of the amount of time that we have spent debating what the Suns should do, what the Suns shouldn't do. Push the chips further all in, or take your foot off the gas pedal. We've debated it back and forth, back and forth. You have probably gone back and forth on what you want this team to do. And with performances like that, I know they took the game to overtime, but they should have won that basketball game. And you deep down, you knew it from the word go. You knew it from jump, because the Trailblazers came out with an energy level that was matching what the Phoenix Suns were providing, and the Suns didn't have that extra gear in the first quarter. You would expect that team to come out with their hair on fire, knowing that they gave one away on Saturday after losing on Friday to the Warriors. You figured that they would be chomping at the bit to go out there and get their revenge against the Trailblazers, and Portland was matching them energy level in the first quarter. That's when we should have known how this game was going to end. And yet it is another example of the long list of games that the Suns have played in this season, in which they have given games away and they have lost games that they have no business losing. So that's the backdrop for the next 48 hours. When we come in here on Thursday to do this program, it is NBA trade deadline day. It will be the last 2 hours once we are on the air for the Suns to do anything before the trade deadline. And this game is the backdrop. And oh, by the way, on Wednesday, tomorrow night, you're going to play the best team in the Western Conference in the Oklahoma City Thunder. Is there anything about what you've seen over the last 2 days that makes you think that the Suns are going to go into Oklahoma City and win that basketball game? Now, in typical Suns fashion, they will probably find a way to win that game to get you to oscillate back and forth on what this team should do. But I think you got the clear message last night. They couldn't find the rebound performance against Portland. They lost back-to-back games against the Portland Trailblazers, who are 13th in the Western Conference. The Suns now are barely hanging on to a play-in tournament spot. I'll check the standings once again while we're here. They're 10th. The same record as the Golden State Warriors. Only a 3-game cushion over the San Antonio Spurs. Sacramento's in front of them. Dallas is in front of them. Minnesota is in front of them. The Suns' season is hanging by a thread. And we've known it's been hanging by a thread for the last couple of weeks. It is hanging by the thinnest of margins after losing 2 games. Why should this team trade for Jimmy Butler? And don't worry, everybody, we're going to get into some Jimmy Butler conversation here today on the program. We're going to talk about rebuild or to continue to go all in. We're going to give you the latest on where the NBA trade deadline stands. A little quiet over the last 24 hours. Everybody may be relaxing after what happened with Luka Doncic, maybe relaxing after what happened with De'Aaron Fox, resetting a little bit. It's been a little quiet right now, almost a little too quiet on the NBA trade deadline front, but plenty of time for that to ramp up here over the next 48 hours, 2 days. 1 o'clock on Thursday is when the deadline is passed. So our last segment, that'll be a lot of fun on Thursday. Our last segment on Thursday's show. So 12:45 on Thursday will be the last 15 minutes. If the Suns haven't done anything by then, it is going to be a very tense 15 minutes to figure out what this team is going to do or what they are not going to do. But the Suns last night lost again in Portland. And truthfully, I don't know what more to say. The big three scored 86 points. You got everything that you would have asked for from those guys. Devin Booker becomes the Suns' all-time leading scorer, drops 34 in 47 minutes. Kevin Durant plays 46 minutes. He adds 27. Those two guys help this team in the middle quarters, the second and third quarter, keep that game close. And yet, you got 86 points combined from the big three, and it wasn't enough. The Portland Trailblazers took you down in overtime. And you got a gift of all gifts from Denny Avito with the foul, just a bad foul to send Devin Booker to the free throw line, and he misses the last free throw. On a night that's supposed to be a celebration of him, he could have had the moment. And instead, you had to watch DeAndre Ayton on the other end of the floor knock down key free throw after key free throw. He was 7 of 8 from the free throw line. I texted with a buddy during the game last night, and he said the DeAndre Ayton revenge game in some capacity. I mean, he at every turn hit the big free throw to keep it a 3-point game to where the Suns couldn't take the lead. And yet when you had a chance to hit the free throw to force double overtime or at least tie the game up, you missed it. That's been the Suns season in a nutshell. 480-864-1060 is the phone number if you want to join the conversation here today on the show. We have a lot to unpack from the Phoenix Suns, where they go from here, why I think last night is truly the breaking point. I think truly it is where the pivot is going to start to take place. But if it doesn't, you know what this means. We have to have another Jimmy Butler conversation because Jimmy Butler is still trying everything in his power to get to Phoenix. Why? That's next on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Thank you. All right, YouTube, what's up? You get a different version of the show today because we're in the home setup. So this is the microphone that you're hearing, or at least you should be hearing. This is the microphone that's going back to the radio station. So you get the between breaks stuff when I'm sitting here at the desk. Hopefully I'm not too loud for you, but you don't hear any of the commercials like I hear in my ears. You get a raw, uninterrupted edition of the show today. The Jimmy Butler story is probably the biggest story remaining before the NBA trade deadline comes and goes. Now that Luka Doncic was officially introduced this morning as the newest member of the Los Angeles Lakers, De'Aaron Fox in line to make his debut for the San Antonio Spurs. Anthony Davis met with the Dallas media today. Jimmy Butler is the last big outstanding piece of business that we think might get done before the NBA trade deadline. And the Warriors still in the middle of all of that. The Suns still in the middle of all of that. And here is the latest on the Jimmy Butler front, and then we'll tie this back into where the Suns stand with this. Chris Haynes, about 15 minutes before we opened up the show here today, put out on X, sources. Jimmy Butler's camp has repeatedly told the Heat he's in shape, healthy, and ready to continue his career and move past this immediately. Their messaging to the Heat has been to negotiate best deal possible, and once in the red zone, if that team is granted permission by Miami, to speak with Butler's rep to discuss his long-term future. That dialogue would be welcomed. To date, no team has asked for permission. So that's from senior NBA insider Chris Haynes on Twitter about a half hour ago. No team, at least according to this report, has asked for permission to speak with Jimmy Butler about the long-term plans, meaning a contract extension. Now, this is in direct response to the reports that have been leaking out that Jimmy Butler has told the Warriors and the Grizzlies, don't trade for me. I'm not signing a long-term deal with you. So don't do it. I'm giving you the heads up. I am not going to sign or entertain the idea of a long-term contract extension. Brian Windhorst went on the ESPN media circuit like he has been for the last couple of days, and again, doubled down, talking about how Jimmy Butler's focus right now, the sole focus right now, is to end up in Phoenix. Here is the question that I have to ask you about all of that. Why do you think Jimmy Butler is still solely focused on Phoenix? Why do you think that 48 hours or so, what is this, 50 hours or so away from the trade deadline, Jimmy Butler is still solely focused on the Phoenix Suns? Why do you think that is? Why do you think he's telling the Warriors and the Grizzlies, I'm not going to sign a long-term deal with you? Is it because perhaps maybe he knows that the Phoenix Suns are the team most desperate for his services? That they are the team that would be willing to give out a ridiculous contract extension? Maybe the Warriors wouldn't do. Maybe the Warriors aren't interested in a long-term 4-year contract extension. Maybe they're willing to maybe do 1 or 2 years, but they're not willing to go to the lengths that Matt Ishbia and the Phoenix Suns are willing to go to, or should we say were willing to go to. I don't think we truly know where the Suns sit right now on February 4th. I don't know if we can truly decide if the Suns are still going to forge ahead and push the chips further all in. I don't know anymore. Luka Doncic getting traded over the weekend, 2 losses to Portland, still hovering over 500. The landscape has changed in the last couple of days. The sample size has grown for the Phoenix Suns as to what they are as a basketball team. They're a middle-of-the-road basketball team. They are a 500 basketball team. That's what they are. Some days it's going to look great, like Friday against Golden State, and some days it's going to look like a disaster, like it did on Saturday night against Portland, and then you're just frustrated with what you saw last night. It's an up and down roller coaster that at the end of the day probably has this team hovering around 500. They've played 49 games. That is a big enough sample size to decide on what you are. But Jimmy Butler probably knows that the one team that is still desperate enough to give him the biggest contract extension would be the Phoenix Suns, if they still believe that that is a deal that they can make. And now we all know, break out your trusty NBA trade deadline bingo card, take the free space, all hinges on Bradley Beal's no trade clause. But I think the dynamics of all of this has changed. Because when this story first broke, what feels like 6 months ago, but it was less than 2 months ago in the second week of December when Jimmy Butler first made it known that he wanted out, and Phoenix was first listed as a potential landing spot or one of the preferred destinations for Jimmy Butler. There was a hint of desperation for the Suns at that time. There was a hint of, we got to do something before this season gets out of hand. On December 9th, December 10th was around the time where the Jimmy Butler story first broke, if I remember correctly. So based on that date that I remember in my head, the Suns were 12-11. They just got done losing in Orlando 115-110 to fall to 12-11 on the season. One game above 500. Their season kind of oscillating back and forth. That 8-1 start that they had felt like a long time ago. Since that 8-1 start, they were 4-10. So a very rocky time in Suns land. Felt like you needed to do something. And then over the course of the last 2 months, since December 9th, December 10th, it has only gotten more rockier. We have seen this team be as low as 16-19 after their loss to Charlotte back a little less than a month ago against Charlotte. 115-104, they fell to the Hornets in Charlotte the second night of a back-to-back. The second game after moving Bradley Beal to his bench role. That was the desperation. That stretch when they lost 4 in a row to Dallas, Golden State, Memphis, Indiana, that was when this team was at their most desperate. That was when this team, if they were going to do something foolish, like trading for and extending Jimmy Butler and continuing down this rabbit hole, and to continue to mortgage their future, that was going to be the pocket of time when they were going to do it. But instead, time has passed. And instead, as we've moved closer and closer to the deadline, instead of desperation, I think there's more clarity in the Phoenix Suns front office. I think there's more clarity among the fan base. You can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I feel that if you were in the camp of wanting to get Jimmy Butler when that deal first surfaced around December, that since then you've realized, with the sample size growing, that this team isn't a Jimmy Butler away from winning a championship. But by trading for Jimmy Butler, you are committing to seeing this core through. You are committed to trying to win a championship as Devin Booker ages, as Kevin Durant turns 37, 38, as Jimmy Butler ages. You are committed to probably at least another 2.5 years, the remainder of this year and 2 years beyond, at least, to see that through. Does that desperation still exist on February 4th? I didn't feel that desperation watching the game last night. What I felt watching the game last night was a team that understood that their season was coming to an end, that their season might already be over. Because you had everything to play for last night. Everything. Chance for quick revenge, a chance to turn things around, a chance to potentially push your front office to maybe not go for Jimmy Butler because of the hurdles that you have to overcome there, but do a deal on a smaller scale. What does a deal on a smaller scale do at this point for the Phoenix Suns? What is a deal like we just saw the Dallas Mavericks just make? No, I'm not talking about the Luka Doncic deal. They just acquired Caleb Martin from the 76ers. What does that kind of deal do for the Phoenix Suns? Because those are the types of deals that they can consider at this point. Being a second apron team puts all sorts of limitations on them. They can't go big game hunting. They can't do what the Warriors are currently doing. The Warriors reportedly are calling everybody about, if you have All-Star next to your name, the Warriors are calling about you. We know the Warriors are calling the Suns about Kevin Durant. We know the Warriors have called the Lakers about LeBron James. We know that they apparently have called about Paul George, that they are just calling around the NBA to try to find somebody to pair with Steph Curry and Draymond Green to try to give this one more run. They are going big game hunting because they have way more tools in the toolbox. The Suns don't. The Suns' desperation that existed in December, that might have existed at the beginning of January, it's not desperation anymore. At least it isn't to me. It probably isn't to you. It might still be desperation in that front office. We don't truly know if they have pivoted. I said it last night on social media because there was a report out there that the Warriors, this was from Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated, that they were still trying to go after Kevin Durant. And that Chris Mannix in his tweet said that the Suns, that their rival executives believe that because the Jimmy Butler stuff has stalled out, that the Suns are strongly considering Durant deals. And I quote tweeted that tweet, and I said the following. I'll read it verbatim. This would be the pivot of all pivots for the Suns, but it would be the right short and long-term decision for the franchise. I'll believe that Ishbia is taking his foot off the gas when I see it, though. That's where I'm at with the Phoenix Suns. They need to make the pivot of all pivots and not go down the Jimmy Butler rabbit hole and instead trade Kevin Durant. We'll talk a little bit about that in hour number 2 of the program. But I will believe that Matt Ishbia is going to go down this rabbit hole or take his foot off the gas when I actually see it happen. When I see a graphic that says, welcome to the Bay Area, Kevin Durant, or welcome back to the Bay Area, Kevin Durant. When I see that graphic, that's when I will believe that Matt Ishbia has changed his tune. But I think the fan base, the desperation that might have existed to do a Jimmy Butler trade 4 weeks ago, no longer is that desperate. I think it's apathy at this point. I think you're just kind of done. I watched that game last night, and I want to enjoy Suns basketball. I'm not enjoying Suns basketball right now. It feels like a chore to watch the Phoenix Suns. It's not fun to watch this team. It should be. A team that has Kevin Durant, a team that has Devin Booker, a team that has Bradley Beal. That should be fun to watch. This isn't fun. It hasn't been fun for a long time. One could argue it hasn't been fun since Kevin Durant has gotten here because it has been misexpectation after misexpectation. So Jimmy Butler might still be trying to force his way to Phoenix. I don't know if the Suns are as desperate as they were 4 weeks ago. And I also don't know if the Suns feel like it is actually possible for them to land Jimmy Butler at this point. Coming up on the other side of the break, should the Cardinals be willing to speculate? I'll explain what I mean next. It's a lunch break, KDUS, AM 1060. Thank you. What's up, Michael? What's going on, man? Even if they bring someone in this late, will it really help enough? No, it won't. It won't. Michael, you just joined us. I'm in the home studio today, so you get the different microphone. This microphone goes to the station. This microphone goes to YouTube. So, yeah, well, a different setup today, Michael. That's why it's maybe a little different. So we're testing some things because I'm home today, but we're still doing a show. But no, I don't know. I don't know if it will really help enough because what do they need, right? I mean, what are they going to get at the trade deadline that's going to actually help them? You know, they needed a center. They got a center. Where was Nick Richards in the final stages of that game last night? Was pinned to the bench. And they can't get Jimmy Butler. So who else is out there? I mean, I said it in the open of the show that it pains me that I'm watching the Portland Trailblazers and I'm watching a player like Denny Avdija, who's not Kevin Durant, who's not Jimmy Butler, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, is not anybody. He's just a solid role player starter for the Portland Trailblazers, but it feels like he plays with more energy than anybody on the Phoenix Suns. And I watched Portland last night and I say, I want that guy on my team. Like, what does that say? What does that say about the Phoenix Suns that I'm watching Portland and a guy who was a 4-year starter in Washington, averages 14 and 7 a night, doesn't wow you, but I look at that player and I go, that's what the Suns are missing. I think it says a lot about where the Phoenix Suns are at and where I think they need to really decide to go moving forward. Why didn't they put Nurk in the last 5 minutes? Nurk's not playing for this team anymore. It's just not happening. Nurk is no longer going to be playing for the Phoenix Suns. Maybe if they don't get a trade done by the deadline, that they try to bring him back into the rotation. Yeah, I mean, they like what they have with Nick Richards and Plumlee and Oso. That's what they like. It's a tough place to be right now. But we'll see. I'm starting to get the sense, and it's just kind of a gut thing, that they're not going to do anything by the deadline. And if they're going to do something, it's going to be actually trading Kevin Durant. But I'll believe that they get to that place when I see it, like I just said. So we'll see. But a quick timeout from all the Suns. We'll talk a little Cardinals here real quick. I want to get back into the Myles Garrett thing from yesterday. had a thought on the way home about Myles Garrett and the Cardinals and how it maybe should be framed. So I'll run that by everybody here. But we've got more. We've got Devin Booker coming up. A quick timeout from the Suns last night. We've got more coming up. Don't worry, about 15 minutes from now. Devin Booker became the all-time Suns leading scorer. We will dive into that and the historic moment that was and how it's in line with a lot of Devin Booker career highlights so far. I'll explain that in about 15 minutes from now. But should the Cardinals be willing to speculate? What do I mean by that question? Why did I use that phrase? Well, yesterday we talked about this on the show. Myles Garrett requesting a trade out of Cleveland, wanting to chase a championship and feeling like Cleveland is no longer the place for him to do that. Sees the writing on the wall. They made the wrong bet at quarterback, and because of the fully guaranteed contract that they gave to Deshaun Watson, it has just put them in an untenable situation moving forward. And Myles Garrett, at this stage of his career, wants an opportunity to win a championship, and he no longer feels that that is in Cleveland. I don't blame him. I think he's right for thinking that. And we said that this might be the golden goose. This might be the move out of left field that the Arizona Cardinals have been waiting for to drop, to fill one of their five pillars, to get their pass rusher. And Myles Garrett is 29 years old. He's got 2 years left on his deal, would probably get a brand new deal in a trade anywhere. How about this as a stat? Since sacks became official in 1982, Myles Garrett has the fifth most sacks by anybody in their first 8 seasons. These are the guys in front of them. Tell me if this is elite company that you're okay with keeping if you're Myles Garrett. Jared Allen, TJ Watt, DeMarcus Ware, and Reggie White. That's how good Myles Garrett is. And he's still only 29 years old. This is not a Khalil Mack situation, right? Who's 34, 35 years old, right? This is somebody who still has probably 3 years of his prime still left. 3 super high productive years, and then maybe 2 years on the back end where he's not going to be Myles Garrett, but 75% of Myles Garrett or 50% of Myles Garrett is going to be better than probably half the pass rushers in the league. And so the Cardinals, we told you yesterday, should be all over this. And I'm going to compare it to something that I think proves this point out even further. I'm sure most of you listening, whether you're on YouTube, the app, the regular radio dial, maybe the HD, however you're listening to the show, you probably have a retirement account. You have a 401k. You have a Roth IRA. You have an HSA account. You have all your different buckets that you put your retirement into so that you set yourself up for the future, right? When you invest those dollars into known commodities. You invest those dollars into the S&P 500. You invest them into the NASDAQ. You invest them into tried and true established companies that have a proven track record of growth, that have a proven track record of return on investment. Because when you get to retirement, you want to cash in on that known commodity. You aren't going the speculative route. Maybe you are if you're young, right? And you maybe can have a little bit of your portfolio, but as you age, you want the known commodity. You don't want to play around in the crypto markets. You don't want to play around with speculative stocks that may go up 200% by the time you retire, but you might also lose a bunch. You don't want to speculate on your retirement. You don't want to speculate on your future. You want a nice, safe retirement. So you bet on the known commodity. You bet on the S&P 500. You bet on Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Home Depot. Those are the brands, those are the companies that you bet on. It's no different for the Arizona Cardinals and their pursuit of pass rush help. You can get the known commodity. You can get the Home Depot, the Pepsi, the Coca-Cola, the Nike. You can get that. That's Myles Garrett. You know what you're going to get. I just read you the statistic of how good he has been over the first 5 years of his career. You're getting the known commodity, the known stock that pays out a dividend, that has growth year over year, that knows how to deal with the economic headwinds or tailwinds and is able to give you a return on your investment so that your 401k portfolio grows. That's what Myles Garrett is in the NFL ecosystem. He is a proven guy that's going to give you double-digit sacks that you know is going to give you the production that you need. Or you can use a draft pick on somebody. And you hope you find the next Home Depot. You hope that you find the next Coke or Pepsi or Nike. You hope that you find the next Meta or Amazon or Google. You hope that you find those stocks. But for all the Googles and Amazons and Metas out there in the stock world and the Home Depots, how many did people invest in and they didn't go to where those stocks went to? That's all a draft pick is. It is a speculative asset. It is the hope that it turns in to what Myles Garrett is. It's a hope that it turns in to what Max Crosby is. So a known commodity versus the speculative asset. The Cardinals need the known commodity. They have a very important year coming up in 2025. It feels like we say this every couple of years so far in his career, but Kyler Murray's got one more chance. Because if he doesn't get this team over the hurdles this year, this organization didn't draft him. This front office didn't sign him to the contract, right? This regime didn't draft him, didn't give him the long-term contract extension. This is the chance after this year is really the first time that you can get out of this deal. They have to have success. Kyler Murray has to have success. And so if we believe what Jonathan Gannon says, what Monty Ossenfort says, that they believe in Kyler Murray, that Kyler Murray is their quarterback, then they need to surround him with the pieces to go out there and compete. It's why we think they should go out there for T. Higgins. It's why Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, anytime one of these pass rushers pops up on the trade radar, we are saying, yes, go all in, because I want the known commodity. I don't want to have to hope that I found the next Myles Garrett with the 16th overall pick. I just want to have Myles Garrett. Because you know what? If I trade for Myles Garrett, I'm getting his age 29, age 30, age 31. I'm still getting some years where he is going to be extremely productive. And maybe I'll find the next Myles Garrett. Maybe I'll find the next Micah Parsons. Maybe I'll find the next TJ Watt. Or maybe I take a second or third round pick or fourth round pick and I find my version of Max Crosby. Maybe. You might be able to do that. But I know what Myles Garrett is at the NFL level. I know what he brings to a team immediately. I don't have to wait a full year to see. I don't have to wait 6 months. I don't have to develop Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett shows up to training camp, shows up on Sundays, and delivers. Immediate production. If you choose to go out and pick the speculative route and use a draft pick, whether it's the first round or the second round or the third round, if that's the path that they choose to take, it is a huge gamble. It's no Luka Doncic Dallas Mavericks gamble, but it's a huge gamble by Monty Ossenfort. It is a gamble on this coaching staff to get the most out of this group. Even Josh Sweat is a known commodity. Not to the level of Myles Garrett, but a known commodity. Sweat, Garrett, Crosby, all of these guys. I know what they are at the NFL level. I know what they can produce. I've got a team that needs to make a playoff run next year, needs to get into the playoffs. I have a team that needs to wash the bad taste out of everybody's mouths for the collapse that they had post-bye. You know how you do that? You dominate with an elite pass rusher and you make the playoffs. And you show to everybody that you've got the right coach, that you've got the right GM, that you've done the right things player development-wise to bring this team along. And when the time was right, you made the ad. You went out and got Myles Garrett. The problem, and Michael points this out on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube chat, this doesn't sound, at least so far, like a move that we would see from Monty Ossenfort. It doesn't feel like he is going to forego those assets. Monty feels like he views the Arizona Cardinals still in the speculative stage of building their retirement portfolio. That they don't need to hedge off and only go for the known commodities. That they can get those speculative assets. That feels more in line with the way Monty has operated as the general manager now for 2 off seasons. This will now be the 3rd off season that we see him operate in. And this offseason, he has less draft assets than he has had in his tenure so far. So if you say that the Cardinals aren't going to do this move because you don't think Monty is willing to do it, I can buy that argument. But I cannot buy not wanting to do this because there's a better path. There's no better path than Myles Garrett. Unless Max Crosby all of a sudden becomes available. Unless all of a sudden Micah Parsons becomes available. Myles Garrett is one of the elite premium pass rushers. You want to talk about the 5 pillars? That is an immediate. I don't have to worry about that pillar for a long time. And then I can choose to draft and develop behind the scenes the protege for Myles Garrett. Go for the known commodity. Go for the thing that grows the 401k portfolio. Go for the thing that gives you the immediate dividend, the immediate results, and also has some future growth built into it. That is Myles Garrett. 480-864-1060 is the phone number. You can also join us in the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel. Coming up on the other side of the break, Devin Booker became the Suns' all-time leading scorer last night. And let's face it, he did so in a very Devin Booker way. I'll explain next. The lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Thank you. Yeah, Michael, that's kind of the point I'm going to go into here is that it's a great record and it's good for Devin and he deserves it and it's awesome and we'll get into that, but it's very Suns that on a night where Devin Booker does something great that they don't win the game. How often has that happened in the past? How often have we had that conversation of, oh, he did something great, but Suns didn't win? Trailblazers are reportedly seeking an unprotected first for Robert Williams III. Too many times. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Last night, Devin Booker, with 7 minutes and 34 seconds to go in the third quarter, hit a three-pointer to become the Phoenix Suns' all-time leading scorer, breaking the record by Walter Davis of 15,666 points. Booker did so in his 10th season and his 642nd game for the Phoenix Suns. And this is where I want to start this conversation. Devin Booker is deserving of having that franchise record. Devin Booker has been here through the good, the bad, and the ugly. When he got drafted here, He was a part of some really bad Suns teams. Not his fault, but that was a team that was in transition. That was a team that was following the timeline. Was a fancy marketing gimmick to tell you, we stink. We're not very good. We're rebuilding. It's going to take a little bit. We can't say trust the process. Philly's already got that one, so we're following the timeline. That's all that was. And Devin Booker kept his head down and played excellent basketball for the Phoenix Suns. And then, after being a part of that ugly, he got to be a part of some really cool and good stuff. He got to team up with Chris Paul. He got to be on a team with Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton. He got to take this team to the NBA Finals. He got to see this team have a 2-0 lead in the NBA Finals, 50% of the way there, in large part because of the way Devin Booker played. And now he is a part of this transition period. And by the way, it feels like it bears a reminder, he's still only 28 years old. We're talking about Kevin Durant being 36. We're talking about trading for Jimmy Butler, who's in his mid-30s. Devin Booker is 28. He got here and started his career here in Phoenix when he was 18 years old. Think about where this team was when Devin started here as an 18-year-old. And where this team is now. It's not pretty. It's not fun. It's disappointing. But think about where the Suns were when Devin Booker got here and where they are now and the journey that we have all been on with him and with this team. So Devin Booker deserves this honor. He has been an elite Phoenix Sun. He is an all-time great Phoenix Sun. And he deserves to be the franchise record holder for points. He deserved that moment in Portland last night with his family members. He deserved the outpouring of support from the fan base. He deserves it all. He deserves a huge ovation when the Suns give him the recognition when they are back home against Utah later this week. He deserves it all. And I can't help but while having this conversation, throw in but the Suns lost. Because that's also the story of Devin Booker, right? And that's why I said it's the most Devin Booker way to break this franchise record. Because on a night when Devin Booker becomes the Phoenix Suns all-time leading scorer, it didn't open the show as part of the victory. I mentioned it, but it wasn't the open to the show. We're getting to it to close hour number 1 of the lunch break, and it came in a loss. Just like when Devin Booker dropped 70 points, and they lost. Just like the great year that Devin Booker had when the Suns made it to the NBA Finals, but blew a 2-0 lead. There's always the yeah but with Devin Booker. Sometimes his fault, sometimes not his fault. Sometimes because of things he's done, and sometimes because of the circumstances. But Devin Booker became the all-time leading scorer for the Phoenix Suns, and it's a footnote. It's a footnote. It's a footnote because a team with these types of expectations just lost in Portland last night. It's a footnote because this team is at least reportedly considering trading Kevin Durant and putting an end to this experiment. And if it does end with Kevin Durant going elsewhere, potentially to the Warriors, this will be another chapter of Suns basketball that Devin Booker will oversee. A lot of the pieces around Devin will have changed, and yet there will be one constant in Phoenix Suns basketball over the last decade plus, and it is Devin Booker. But this team had too many expectations on them. Their play as of late hasn't been very good. Last night was a loss. There are so many reasons why becoming the Phoenix Suns all-time leading scorer gets overshadowed, and they all were on full display last night. And that's disappointing because this should be a celebration. We should be talking about this in a celebration manner. And maybe that responsibility falls on me to not allow everything else to cloud over it. But how could we ignore the fact that Devin Booker has been here for 10 years and every single major milestone that this franchise has gotten to or he has gotten to while he has been here is shrouded in a yeah, but. Made it to the NBA Finals, yeah, but you lost. Scored 70 in a game, yeah, but you lost. Became the Phoenix Suns' all-time leading scorer, yeah, but you lost, and you're in the midst of a season that, to everybody, is a abject failure. So it's hard to celebrate these wins. It's hard to celebrate somebody who is going to go down as an all-time great in the NBA. Somebody that's going to go down as one of the all-time great scorers in this game. That is an already all-time great Phoenix Sun. Has been here for 10 years. Wants to be here for the remainder of his career. Whatever you think of the current iteration of the Phoenix Suns, Kevin Durant, getting Jimmy Butler, Bradley Beal, all of it. Whatever you think of it, there's going to be probably another chapter of Phoenix Suns basketball where they might flirt with a championship, and Devin Booker is probably going to lead the charge there as well. Kevin Durant is playing basketball right now at 36. That is 8 years away for Devin Booker. That is 2033. That is a draft pick the Suns haven't traded yet. The 2032, 2033 picks, they haven't moved those ones yet. They still have those. For now. That is 8 years down the road. And maybe this is why I push so strongly to, and we'll break it back out, even though I said that we retired it. I think we have to get it off the shelf, producer Corey, dust it off, put it back in the center of the table, the big red button. This is why I wanted the Suns to realize what they are, realize where they are at, and make the decision to reset. I know it's hard. I know it's tough to look at your fan base and say, we need you to bear with us. We need to go through this again. I'm aware of the pain that you're asking fans to go through. But you know what? This is painful right now. And if you continue down this path, it's going to be even more painful. I want Devin Booker to have another championship window. And he is young enough to where you can give him another really good championship window. And spoiler alert, it might be a better championship window than this one. But in order to give him that window, you have to admit your faults. And we're going to talk about this in hour number 2 of the program of where this team is and what they're closer to doing. Rebuild or competing for a championship. You're kind of getting a preview of where I feel on that and what I think should be next. But that's the backdrop for Devin Booker setting the all-time record. It can never just be about Devin Booker doing something great or Devin Booker doing something historic. Devin Booker putting his name in Phoenix Suns lore forever. It can never just be about that with this team, with Devin Booker. For whatever reason, there's always the yeah, but. And it continued again last night. Because last night, not only did they lose, but the other yeah, but is Devin Booker missed the one free throw that you couldn't miss that could have potentially sent the game to double overtime against Portland. He drew the foul. What a dumb foul by Denny Avila. But he drew the foul with 4 seconds to go to set up 3 key free throws to potentially send the game to double overtime. And he misses the last one. So on a night when he becomes the all-time leading scorer, what are we talking about? Another bad loss to Portland and Devin Booker missing a key free throw. Those are the storylines. That's the conversation. Not a celebration of the greatness of Devin Booker. Not a celebration of the greatness that is becoming a franchise's all-time leading scorer. We don't even get to have that moment with this team. It goes back to something I said 2 segments ago. This team just isn't fun. That was supposed to be fun last night. Him becoming the all-time leading scorer is supposed to be fun. Those moments, those historic moments when somebody takes a record, think about the way sports are right now. How often do guys stick around, not just in the NBA, but in baseball, in football, in hockey, to be able to break franchise records? With free agency, with salary caps, with luxury taxes, with aprons, with every mechanism that exists in sports right now, it's really hard to see. LeBron James, potentially the greatest basketball player of all time, on his 3rd franchise. Luka Doncic, a player that should never have left Dallas, going to be on his 2nd franchise already. Think about all the greats. Kevin Durant, Oklahoma City, Golden State, Brooklyn, Phoenix. He's on his 4th team. Players like Steph Curry, who've been with Golden State forever. Kobe Bryant, who was with the Lakers forever. Devin Booker, who's been with Phoenix forever. Those types of players don't come around very often when you can set franchise records. And yet on a night when we should be celebrating that, instead, this team has given us another example. Another reason to go, yeah, but. Yeah, but they lost. Yeah, but he missed a free throw. Yeah, but this season is a disaster. So when we look back on when Devin Booker became the all-time leading scorer, it's going to come up in passing, in conversation with friends, family, strangers down the road, 5, 10, 15 years. And there's going to be that one person who goes, yeah, that was the year they had Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, and they made the coaching change, and they should have won a championship, but they were just a 500 team. Because that's what people are going to remember from this season. I hope I'm wrong. I hope people remember this for what it is and the greatness that it is. But it is the most Devin Booker thing of all time last night. That he does something historic. Just like the night, the thing I compare it to is the night that he scores 70 and they lose the basketball game. You have one guy on your team score 70 points and you can't win the basketball game, so that now it's just a footnote. How many times does the 70-point game get referenced? It doesn't. So congrats to Devin Booker. I just hope that as it ages, it gets the respect that it deserves. Hour number 1 of the program in the books. Hour number 2 right around the corner. Losses like last night have become the norm, and they are what have sunk this Suns season. That's next. The lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Thank you. The Suns have such a hard time with young athletic teams. They are too old. Yes. Yes, they are, Michael. I mean, just last night, man, you're watching Scoot Henderson and even Ayton and Avida and Jeremy Grant. I mean, you're just watching these guys, and it's just the Suns just can't match the physicality. They can't match the energy. I mean, I said it in the open, but Denny Avila is taking the ball up the court, and I'm just like, the Suns don't have a guy that pushes the floor like that. They just don't have that guy, and you can find a guy like that. They just don't have it. The point guard that they went out and got in free agency, they've basically said, you're not controlling the ball anymore. So Devin Booker's back to being point book. Durant's carrying the ball up the floor. When Beal's in the game, he's carrying the ball up the floor. Just a bad fit. It's just bad. It's just bad. I truly think that, like, for me, this era of Suns basketball is just so hard to enjoy because they're supposed to be much better than this, and it's supposed to be so much more fun, and it's not. That, like, I just need the next era to be here so that, like, I can enjoy it more. Like, we're going to talk about this probably in the next segment, hopefully, at some point, but like, Portland's not going anywhere. Portland's 13th in the Western Conference. Their fans probably had a blast last night watching that game. Suns fans are watching the game through their hands. They're getting upset every possession. We're watching the game and you're like, what are we doing? Portland, they're having a blast. They're playing a close game against the Suns and they're okay with it. Because they're exciting, they're young, they're energetic, they have athleticism. It's fun. Nothing about the way the Suns play basketball is fun. It's a really tough place to be. That a team that's 20-29, now 21-29, can be playing more fun basketball and more energetic basketball, and their fan base is having so much more fun this season than Suns fans are. It's insane. Yeah, you're watching scared. You're watching scared. You watch the entire season scared. Just not fun. Here we go. Welcome back into the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060, the KDUS AM 1060 app, and the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel. And I will tell you, today is an interesting day to be over on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel. Because we're in the home studio, I have a different setup for the live stream. So there's a microphone that's just going to the live stream, and then there's the microphone that you're hearing me on the radio station. So during the break, I'm talking to the live chat during the breaks, which I'm not normally able to do when we are in the studio. So a very different look over on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel live stream today. So if you're interested in that or you have some time, head on over there, subscribe over there, and you have a chance to catch the show live and get the video version, and you get some extras, right, on a day like today. Losses like last night have become the norm for the Phoenix Suns. I wrote down a list. I have that list in front of me of bad losses for the Phoenix Suns just this season. This isn't all of them. It's not a comprehensive list. This is just some of the ones that I could immediately remember off the top of my head. The two losses in Portland, the easiest to write down. The loss in Atlanta, the loss in Charlotte, the loss at home to the shorthanded Grizzlies, the loss to the Pistons at home, a loss in New Orleans to the Pelicans, and then a home loss to the Brooklyn Nets. That's just some of the losses. Let's do some quick math. 2 against Portland. Atlanta is 3. Charlotte is 4. Memphis is 5. Detroit is 6. New Orleans is 7. Brooklyn is 8. 8. I found 8 losses that truthfully are inexcusable. How different would it be if the Phoenix Suns won half of those games? Let's do a fun little thought exercise, everybody. Let's give the Phoenix Suns 4 more wins. So instead of being 25-24, if we had them split those 8 games that I just put together, they would be 29-20. Do you know where 29-20 would have them? Do you know where that would put them right now? They would be the 6th seed in the Western Conference. They would be comfortably the 6th seed. They'd be right on the heels of the Lakers for the 5 seed. They'd be 1 game back in the loss column of the Denver Nuggets for the 4 seed. That's if they split those 8 games that I just put on the table for you all. If you just split these last 2 against Portland, if you beat Memphis at home when they're shorthanded, missing their top 2 rebounders in that game, if you don't lose to Detroit at home, if you don't lose to Brooklyn at home, let's not lose to Charlotte, the 4th worst team in the NBA. I don't care that it was the second night of a back-to-back. You don't lose that game. You don't lose to the Brooklyn Nets, who are 17 games below 500. Let's not lose to those teams. I know Memphis is the 2 seed, but on the night that you played them, that was not the 2-seeded Memphis Grizzlies. That was more like the 12th-seeded Memphis Grizzlies, or 12th ranked Memphis Grizzlies. That was the team that you played. And here is where it all comes back for the Phoenix Suns. They are 12-16 against teams that are 500 and above, and they are only 13-8 against teams that are below 500. You want to know what the upper echelon teams in the Western Conference are doing against teams below 500? How about the Thunder, 18-1. The Grizzlies, 20-3. The Rockets, 13-4. The Nuggets, 16-5. The Clippers, 16-4. The Lakers, 15-4. Do you sense a theme here? If you want to be a good team, you got to beat the teams below 500. And all those losses that I just mentioned, Portland, 2 losses against Portland, a team that was below 500. A loss to the Brooklyn Nets, a team that's below 500. The Detroit Pistons, right now, just at 500. You lost to Atlanta, who's below 500. Brooklyn, who's below 500. Charlotte, who's below 500. All these teams that you lost to that are on this list, and that's just 8 games that I picked. 8 losses of the 24. A third of your losses are games that you should not have lost. Games that you gave away. And that doesn't even include games like Minnesota last week, where you had a lead going into the second half and you blew that lead. This is the norm for the Phoenix Suns this year. This is what their resume is. When we look back at this season, this is the thing that I want us to focus on. That they didn't take care of business against teams that are below 500. They didn't win the winnable. They lost 2 to Portland. We gave the game yesterday a 10 with an exclamation point importance for our brand new handy dandy how important is this game for the Phoenix Suns scale, which we debuted, I think, 4 games ago, where we rank the game on a 1 to 10 scale. We gave out 2 10s so far, and they were both Portland games because you can't lose those games. You can't add to the list that I just read to you. You play Utah later this week, 11-37, second worst record in the NBA. That can't get added to the list. You can't add that game to a growing list that has Charlotte on it, Brooklyn, 2 against Portland, Detroit, all these teams that I named. You can't add Utah to that list. And oh, by the way, you haven't played great against Utah this year. You haven't played great against Washington this year. Both those games you beat them, they're close. The story of the 2024-25 Phoenix Suns is simple. They can't win the winnable. They make it difficult on themselves. They make it more challenging than it has to be. So for every game like last night that you lose, for every game like Saturday that you lose, you got to find one against Oklahoma City. You have to find one against Houston and Denver and Memphis. You have to find one. With the hardest schedule remaining in the NBA, you have to find one. You have to find a game. Not only do you have to beat all the teams like Utah that come up on your schedule, but you also then need to pick up a game somewhere. With 33 games to go, here are the easiest opponents remaining for the Phoenix Suns. 2 against the Spurs. Let's keep tally, everybody. 2 against the Spurs. 2 against the Bulls, that makes 4. 2 against the Raptors is 6. 2 against the Pelicans is now 8. And 1 against the Jazz is now 9. You have to win all 9 of those games. Those are the easiest opponents, according to Tankathon, for the Phoenix Suns. You have to win all 9 of those games. All 9 of those games have to be wins. And then you have to make up these 2 Portland losses by finding one against somebody else. Now, it doesn't have to be against Cleveland or Oklahoma City or Boston or Memphis, New York or Houston. Those are the top tier teams that you play. Those are your toughest opponents left. Maybe you get one against the Lakers or the Nuggets or the Clippers or the Timberwolves or the Mavericks, teams directly in front of you in the standings. Maybe you can find one against those teams. And you do. You have to find them. You can't just lose those games and go, oh, those teams are, they're around the same as us. Sometimes we'll win, sometimes we'll lose. No, you have to find those wins. You have to make up for the 2 that you just lost to Portland. You have to find a way to make up for the 8 that I've pointed out when you lost to Brooklyn at home, when you lost to Detroit at home, when you just lost 2 to Portland, when you lost to Charlotte in Charlotte on the second night of a back-to-back that was inexcusable. You have to make up for those games if you want to still be serious in the Western Conference, because right now you're holding on. You are the 10 seed in the Western Conference right now. Barely. You have the same record as Golden State. Look at the way Golden State is conducting business this week. They still think they have a chance. They are way more desperate than the Phoenix Suns are right now. And maybe that is the worm starting to turn here, where Phoenix is realizing, this front office is realizing, this isn't happening. But Golden State is desperately trying to acquire an all-star, desperately trying to get somebody in the building to pair with Curry, with Green, to give it one more run. Do you sense the same desperation right now around the Phoenix Suns? It's one guy, it's Jimmy Butler, and let's be honest, that's gotten real quiet over the last week. We told you yesterday, but I'll repeat it again because sometimes people aren't here the whole time. So I want you to understand what's coming up next week for the Phoenix Suns. Not only do they have Oklahoma City and Denver this week, Utah sandwiched in the middle there, but next week they play 5 games. Memphis, Houston, San Antonio, Chicago, Toronto. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. Now, we've already told you, Chicago and Toronto, even though those games are on the road, that's part of that group of 9 that you have to have. Are you watching a team right now that you think is going to go into, that's going to host Memphis on Tuesday and beat Memphis? Does it look like a team that's going to go into Houston and beat Houston? Now, maybe you'll be able to beat San Antonio. I would have said a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, I would have said you have a chance, but they just added De'Aaron Fox. What does that team look like? That's at least a bigger challenge than it was on Friday's show. That's what you have next week. We said you had to go 2-2 this week. You've got 3 games left. You have to find 2 wins. You got to beat Utah on Friday, and you got to steal one. Either tomorrow night in Oklahoma City or on Saturday at home against Denver. And so ask yourself this. as we continue to lay this out day in and day out. It's just getting to a place where the math ain't mathin'. You'll hear me say that a lot. I say it all the time. The math ain't mathin'. When it doesn't add up, when I can't get there with what I've seen, what the eyeball test tells me and what the math tells me, it's just not happening. I know it. You know it. I know you're listening in the car, on the app, on the YouTube stream. You know how this season is going to end for the Phoenix Suns. You know it. You have already accepted that this season is not ending the way it was supposed to end. They are not competing for a championship. So you know it. I know it. Here is the most important question. Does the Suns front office know it? Does James Jones know it? Does Matt Ishbia know it? Doesn't matter what you and I think. I can talk until I'm blue in the face. I can take your phone calls all day long on this. I can read the YouTube comments on this all day long. It truthfully doesn't matter what you and I think. What matters at this point, 49 hours away from the trade deadline, is what James Jones and Matt Ishbia think. Do they see that the math ain't mathin'? Does their eyeball test show them the same thing that our eyeball test is showing us? Coming up on the other side of the break, it is time for us to have a tough conversation about the Phoenix Suns. Are they closer to a rebuild or are they closer to a championship? And what steps do they need to take? That's next on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Thank you. All right, everybody, this is a longer break, so I'm going to use this to stretch my legs. So I will be back. All right, we're coming back from break, everybody. Let's have the tough conversation about the Phoenix Suns. Let's go to the place that I think everybody has been avoiding going to. I don't want to say all the way over the last couple of weeks. I think we've flirted with it at times, but I think it's becoming more and more of a reality within the last, I would say, 3 or 4 days. And I don't necessarily believe that Luka Doncic being traded is the starting point for this, but I certainly think it changed the paradigm in the Western Conference. It certainly opened the door for this stuff to be more possible. I think the play of the Phoenix Suns, losing 2 in Portland, being 1 game above 500, has a lot more to do with this conversation than Luka Doncic upending things in the Western Conference. Not even his fault, just the Dallas Mavericks upending things in the Western Conference. Here's the question. The Phoenix Suns, as we sit here, February 4th, 2025, are they closer to a rebuild or are they closer to a championship? Now, I don't ask that question not knowing what the answer is, because I know what the answer is. You know what the answer is. We've just said in the last segment, it matters what the front office thinks the answer is. This team is closer to a rebuild than they are to a championship. Watch that game last night and tell me that that team can win a championship. That team is just adding a Jimmy Butler away from winning a championship. I said it in the open of the show. The team that looked like they were fighting for their playoff lives, that looked like a team that had huge aspirations that they were trying to reach, was Portland, not Phoenix. The Phoenix Suns looked like a team that has had just bad luck all year long, and they've just kind of accepted their fate. They've accepted who they are, what they are going to be. They've just accepted it. It wasn't fun watching that basketball game last night. It's fun watching Portland play. If I was a Portland Trailblazers fan, the back and forth nature of that game, I had a blast. Suns fans, we're watching that game scared. We're watching that game through our hands, not really wanting to actually see them potentially squander another opportunity. And they did squander that opportunity last night. You walk into every game right now for the Phoenix Suns not knowing which team's going to show up. You walk into every single time the Suns start, and by the way, I'll say it again like I said yesterday, these 8 o'clock starts and a game that went into overtime and the lengthy end of game debacle that was just checking every single thing that occurred in the last 2 minutes. Game just took forever. Please, no more 8 o'clock starts. I'd like to say that that's the reason we're doing the show from home today, but it is not. But we'll use it as the excuse anyway. The Phoenix Suns don't play fun basketball. Portland plays fun basketball. You're scared to watch the Phoenix Suns because you know that even if it looks great, it's still not enough. And there are more nights than not, it looks like it did last night. So you know the answer to the question. This team is closer to a rebuild than they are a championship. It's why conversations about Kevin Durant have not been immediately shoved to the side. It's why Kevin Durant's agent was hanging out with the owner of the Warriors on Friday night. They were seen talking, having conversation. It's why the Warriors are so active in their pursuit, because maybe, just maybe, all of this news that is starting to leak out about Kevin Durant and the Suns at least listening on Kevin Durant means that they are considering making the pivot of all pivots. that they are finally willing to admit, listen, we tried to run this like it was an NBA 2K franchise. We were the ownership group that did things differently than everybody else. Second apron, who cares? Give me all the superstars. I'm going to try to win a championship. And in a lot of ways, we respect it, right? You want to have an owner that is willing to spend all the money in the world, not my money, right? Who cares? And so you can respect this approach. But part of being a fan of a team and a part of supporting a team is if you've been around a long time, and most of us have been around a lot longer than Matt Ishbia has been around for, we've seen this team. So we kind of know what it's supposed to look like when it's good, and we kind of know when the wheels are starting to fall off here. And so you can do all of the right things. You can run it like an NBA 2K franchise, but you also have to be willing to admit your mistakes. You have to be willing to admit that things didn't work out. That's the way you keep the fans on your side. There is not a single Suns fan out there right now, truthfully, and maybe I'm wrong, 480-864-1060, or if you're in the YouTube chat, you can throw in your comments there as well. But I don't think there is a Suns fan right now out there that would be upset if this team said, you know what, this isn't working. It didn't work. We gave it a chance. And instead of prolonging the pain, instead of stretching the pain out, we're just going to take some small pain right now and just get this thing back up going. But do not worry. Our commitment to excellence, our commitment to winning is not going anywhere. We just need to kind of reset a little bit. We got to get under that second apron. We have to get all these things back in our control. We need to get our draft picks back under control. But we are still driven to win. I think everybody would understand that. I don't think anybody would be upset if by Thursday Kevin Durant got traded. And think about what that's saying. Kevin Durant is one of the best basketball players on the planet. And yet I think if we saw a notification come across our phones that they traded Kevin Durant, none of us would be surprised. And truthfully, I don't think any of us would be upset, because deep down, there would be relief. There would be relief of, okay, they're going to try something different. There's a new chapter, because the old chapter wasn't working. The old chapter was boring. The old chapter was scary. The old chapter was annoying. The old chapter was all these things that is not what I sign up for being a basketball fan. But this new chapter, it's kind of exciting. They have all these different directions that they can now go. And I said this earlier in the week. I think I said it on Monday's show. If not, I said it at the end of last week. I'm annoyed because all of these other teams are getting involved. We're going to give you an update here in about 10 minutes from now on the rest of the NBA trade deadline. Suns can't be involved in any of it. Second apron, what they're limited in doing. By the way, have you tried to pull up the NBA trade machine to make a Kevin Durant deal possible with the Warriors? It's impossible. You have to add in a third team and a fourth team, and you have to move. The Suns don't have the assets to do what everybody else is doing. I want my team to be in a position like the Spurs were, to be able to strike and get De'Aaron Fox to pair with Wemby. We've already got Devin Booker on this team. If you're able to kind of reset, if you trade Kevin Durant, you get back some assets. Do I think that deal is going to be perfect? No, you gave up a lot for Kevin Durant, but at least it signals a new direction. It signals, I think, some relief among the fan base of, okay, we do have an owner that understands when enough is enough. We do have a front office that understands we got to pivot. And I think that's what would drive fans getting behind this decision. I mean, it's where I'm at. Trade Kevin Durant. Maybe in the summer, Bradley Beal's contract becomes more tolerable to some teams, and you are probably more likely to move him in the summer anyway. And then you can start to get more creative. If you do a trade for Kevin Durant, it gets you under the second apron. It might even, depending on what salaries you take back, get you under the first apron. And now you've reset and you can operate the way all these other teams are operating. And if an opportunity presents itself, here's the one thing I do know about Matt Ishbia that makes me super excited about what the next chapter would look like. If an opportunity presents itself, he's going to be right there because they have the assets. They're going to get more assets in a potential KD deal. And so if they feel that there's a superstar out there that helps them, when the time is right, they are going to go out and acquire that superstar. That's a good thing. Sometimes you have the owner that isn't willing to do that, or the front office that isn't willing to do that. And so when you have this window, you want to see this window through because you don't know if the next window is going to come. The one thing I know about Matt Ishbia, with the amount of money that he is spending on this team, is that his commitment to winning is not going to go anywhere. It might look different. It might take some time for the next championship window to open up. But I have no concerns at all about Matt Ishbia's commitment to trying to win a championship. It just needs to look different. And the first step of it looking different is admitting this isn't working. You are 25 and 24. Should a team that has Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal be 25 and 24? No. The best thing the Phoenix Suns can do this trade deadline is move Kevin Durant because it would at least signal a new direction. It will put them on a new course, and that new course will be more exciting. It will be more fun. There's more possibilities. And truthfully, I think that pathway gets them closer to a championship than continuing down this pathway. So that's the tough conversation that I think is going on behind the scenes in the Suns front office. It's why these reports are kind of starting to leak out that the Suns have been taking phone calls on Kevin Durant. Because I think part of it could be that Jimmy Butler isn't coming here, and they know that Kevin Durant wants Jimmy here, and so that contract extension might be in the air, so you might as well get something for him now. I do think that probably plays a little bit in all of this. But also, at the end of the day, they're not winning basketball games. They're not winning enough basketball games. And everybody else in the West is getting a lot better, while the Phoenix Suns are just getting a lot older. They are closer to a rebuild than they are a championship. The next 48 and a half hours need to see this team get on that path towards a rebuild, because the quicker you start that path, the quicker you get back to opening a championship window. The more you stay stuck in this championship window, the harder it is, or the harder it will be for you to get back. Coming up on the other side of the break, what's happening around the rest of the NBA as we move closer and closer to the NBA trade deadline? Well, all the focus is on one team, but we'll let you know the latest next. It's the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Thank you. What's up, YouTube? We're in break right now. So if you've got something, you can throw it in the chat. Or if you want me to get to something here in this next segment, go ahead. I can answer it now. We can make it a topic to close the show, whatever. But your chance here while we're in commercial break, before the radio show gets back, because you guys don't get to hear the commercials like I hear in my ears. What's up, Michael? Michael, I'm not worried about you throwing your thoughts in here. I know you'll do that. It's good. I'm saying that in a good way, but I know you're going to do that. Well, we'll see, Michael. We'll see. They've got 48 and a half hours. I just hope I don't know, stand pat. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow. We'll rank what we want the Suns to do. of like making a big trade standing pat or trading Durant. Welcome back into the lunch break. Make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app today so you can take the show with you on the go. You can take the station with you wherever you may be. Maybe you're working out at the gym, you're going grocery shopping, you're out and about, you're not in your car or near your computer. Don't worry, you got the KDUS AM 1060 app to take us with you on the go. And listen, it's a lunch break for a reason. You're out and about. You might be in and out of getting lunch, and you don't want to miss anything from the show. That's why you have the KDUS AM 1060 app. So download that today wherever you get your podcast. So where do things stand? The NBA trade deadline on Thursday, 1 o'clock, right as we get done. I'm already anticipating that Thursday is going to be a fun show. I'm already anticipating that on Thursday, there's going to be a lot in that 2-hour condensed time slot that we have, where we're just going to be reacting to everything as it happens. So one of the perks of being in live radio is you get days like that where you just get to react to things and get your immediate raw reaction to it all. And so we'll have that on Thursday. Today, the Lakers introduced Luka Doncic. Anthony Davis was introduced to the Dallas Mavericks. So that deal done, dusted in the past. Those two teams are moving on. There was one trade that was done here today. The Mavs acquired Caleb Martin from the 76ers for Quentin Grimes. I believe there was also a second-round pick involved in that deal as well. That's the only deal that's been done today, and all eyes continue to be focused on one team and one team mainly. I don't want to say only, but mainly. And that one team is the Golden State Warriors. A Warriors team that right now sits on the outside looking in the Western Conference. 25-24, 11th in the West, tied record-wise with the Kings and the Suns, but outside looking in. And they don't want to just sneak into the playoffs. They don't want to be the 10th or 9th or 8th seeds. They don't want to just play in a play-in tournament. They've got Steph Curry. They've got Draymond Green. They are sniffing around to add another all-star to those two guys because they want to give it one more go. They want to give it one more go at winning a championship, at taking it to Oklahoma City, to Memphis, to Houston, to Denver, making a run in the Western Conference playoffs and trying to win one more championship with their superstars in Steph Curry and Draymond Green. That's what they're trying to do. And so all eyes are focused on them right now because they appear to be the team, not the Phoenix Suns, most aggressive. They're linked to everybody. They're linked to Kevin Durant. There was a link to calling about LeBron James. Shams Charania said that they called about Paul George. He went on to say, basically, if somebody's an all-star, the Warriors have called on them. And you can just feel in the reporting the desperation from Golden State. And I don't want to make this all about the Phoenix Suns here, but compare the two situations. Same record, basically in the same spot, crossroads of their franchise, and I feel desperation from the Warriors that I don't feel from the Phoenix Suns. Now, maybe it's because the Golden State Warriors don't have a Bradley Beal situation to solve. They don't have a no-trade clause that's holding everything up. They have Wiggins, Kuminga, draft picks. They have assets that they can move that can keep them in the apron that they want to be in, but also allow them to go for it. They don't have to shoehorn in a third, fourth, fifth team to try to take on a no-trade clause to try to make a deal happen. So it might not just be that they're more aggressive because of that, but they're being the most aggressive. You don't hear the Suns linked to players the way the Warriors are being linked. The Warriors are being linked to everybody. They were linked to Zach LaVine before he went to Sacramento as a part of the De'Aaron Fox deal to San Antonio. Golden State is being linked to Jimmy Butler still. There was a deal apparently on the table that was agreed to that was Wiggins and picks for Butler. Brian Windhorst said this today. I believe he was on Get Up on ESPN. He was on some ESPN property. I believe it was Get Up, where he said that that deal was basically done, but Jimmy said that he wasn't going to sign a contract extension. So the deal was then pulled off the table. So Golden State is actively shopping everywhere. But here's the question. Who's truly available? Now, Luka Doncic was available, apparently, over the weekend. So anybody could be had in a trade, I guess. I don't think the Celtics are trading Jason Tatum. I don't think the Bucks are trading Giannis. But you could probably call about everybody at this point and just at least see. And that's exactly what the Warriors are doing. So they are the team to keep an eye on. The Bucks are a team to keep an eye on. Chicago is reportedly a team to keep an eye on. They are still trying to move their center, Nikola Vucevic, the 34-year-old. Brandon Ingram could be on the move from the Pelicans. The Bucks and Wizards have discussed a Kyle Kuzma trade, according to The Athletic. I mean, this is what we have to look forward to over the next 48 hours or so. What are the Warriors up to? What are they going to be able to get done before Thursday? How aggressive truly are they going to get? And what is everybody else up to? I made the joke in passing on yesterday's show. But think about the top of the Eastern Conference. And truthfully, think about the top of the Western Conference. We'll just do the top three for this example. Top three in the East: Cleveland, Boston, New York. Cleveland's 40-9. Boston's 35-15. So 40-9 for Cleveland, 35-15 for Boston, 33-17 for New York. Do you hear any of those three teams linked to anything? 40-9, 35-15, 33-17. Those are upper echelon teams. Cleveland, Boston, New York. Do you hear any of them linked to anybody at the trade deadline? Go to the Western Conference. Oklahoma City, Memphis, Houston. Oklahoma City, 39-9. Memphis, 34-16. Houston, 32-17. Again, the upper echelon of those teams. Really good basketball teams. Have you heard any rumors of Oklahoma City making any additions? Have you heard any rumors of Memphis making any additions? Have you heard any rumors of Houston making any additions? Who have been the teams right now that have been making the additions? The Lakers and Mavericks made their swap. That's the 5th seed and the 8th seed in the West making a change. The Phoenix Suns are sniffing around. They're the 10 seed. The Golden State Warriors are 11th in the West. They're sniffing around to try to make a trade. San Antonio got De'Aaron Fox. They're behind Golden State. Miami, they're trying to trade Jimmy Butler. They're 6th. The best teams in the NBA right now love their rosters. There's not an urgency the way Golden State has an urgency. The way Miami apparently has some urgency. The way Milwaukee, the 5 seed, has some urgency. The top tier teams aren't looking for that extra piece to take them over the top. They feel really comfortable where they're at. You got 2 teams in Cleveland and Oklahoma City who haven't lost double-digit games yet. They're both still at 9 losses. And those teams are just sitting back and letting all of the trade deadline chaos happen around them. They're allowing Golden State to be super aggressive and go crazy. Phoenix to be super aggressive and go crazy. The Dallas Mavericks to be aggressive and trade Luka Doncic. Miami, the 6th seed, trying to trade Jimmy Butler. You don't hear a peep out of Cleveland, Boston, MSG, Oklahoma City, Memphis, or any of those teams being linked to anybody right now. No. All of our focus is on the Warriors. All of our focus is on the Heat and Jimmy Butler. And obviously, for the sake of this program, all of our focus is on the Phoenix Suns. That's it. Nobody else is doing anything. What does that tell you about the way to build a team in the NBA right now? What does that tell you? Does it tell you that the way these teams were built in the past is the way to build in the future? Oklahoma City's not built that way. They are a draft and develop team. Houston, draft and develop. Memphis, draft and develop. The Knicks, yeah, you got Brunson and you traded for Cat. Okay, you're kind of an outlier. Boston, though, mainly a draft and develop with Tatum and Brown. Cleveland, yes, you got Donovan Mitchell. That was the piece that took you over the top. But some draft and develop in other areas. You don't build a team the way the Suns have built a team. Trading for Kevin Durant, trading for Bradley Beal, vet mins everywhere else. It's just not the way. And all of those teams that I just mentioned, all of those teams are going to be super active in the buyout market post-trade deadline. That's where they're going to make their additions. Because guys are going to get cut, because teams are going to be in full tank mode, and they're going to try to save some salaries, and those teams are going to pick those guys up on the buyout market, and that's how they're going to improve. And they're going to keep their assets, they're going to keep their players, and that's the way they're going to add a 11th or 12th guy to their rotation, or just a role player that they could have for 8 to 10 minutes a night. That's how those teams are going to improve. While the Warriors and Suns are tripping over each other to try to make a big splash. Just elbowing each other out of the way to try to do something. They're 10th and 11th. They don't have the calmness that the top teams do. And you would expect Cleveland, Boston, New York to maybe have that urgency. Now, Boston did win the championship last year, but Cleveland, you want that little extra piece to help you in the postseason. The Knicks, you want that little extra piece to get you past Boston or Cleveland. But no. Cruise control for those teams. Cruise control for Oklahoma City, Memphis, and Houston. Those three teams, they don't have any proven track record in the playoffs. You would think they would maybe want some veteran leadership or that one extra piece to put them over the top. Nope. Totally fine. Totally cool with the way things are. That's where things stand as we get closer to being 48 hours away from the NBA trade deadline. You know how this will work. We will keep you updated as things progress over the course of the next 2 days. But coming up on the other side of the break, we wrap up today's edition of The Lunch Break. It is with the leftovers. We'll do it next. The Lunch Break, KDUS, AM 1060. I appreciate that, Michael. You're what we call a P1, a day one. You've been here from the get-go, so we appreciate you. Appreciate you spreading the word. I mean, the show is only middle of October, 3.5 months old, so I expect it to grow over time. Rome wasn't built in a day, right? That's what they say. Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't build an entire show community in 3.5 months. But we're trying. We're doing our best. And we're continuing to explore on new things to do here on the YouTube side. It's a constant upgrade. So we fine tune it to where we want. Oh, we're back. Here we go. Final segment of the day. Welcome back in. The Lunch Break, KDUS AM 1060, wrapping up today's edition of the show. Speaking of the Rooster, he was out at the DraftKings Sportsbook, TPC Scottsdale, last night. I believe he's back out there. Producer Corey can probably correct me if I'm wrong here, because I know he was listening last night. He was hanging out with him. I believe Rooster's back there on Wednesday and then also there on Friday this week. Now, he's there on Monday, and then he's choosing, and this is a choice because I talked to him on the phone about this. He's choosing to go back out there during the Phoenix Open on Wednesday and Friday. So we're just going to hope for the best for him while he's out there, because it could be a little crazy out there at the Phoenix Open later this week. But yeah, he was out there last night, and he'll be doing the show from there on Wednesday and Friday, but he'll be back on tonight, 5 o'clock here, KDUS AM 1060, the Sports Zoo with Rooster. We wrap up with today's edition of The Leftovers, all the stories that we didn't get to. And yesterday we had a very NBA trade deadline themed edition of The Leftovers. Not that way today. We have an NFL story that we will start with because yesterday, after Myles Garrett released his trade request, there was a shocking trade-related piece of news, and that was Cooper Kupp putting it out on social media that he was informed. I'll read from his tweet that he put out last night. I was informed that the team will be seeking a trade immediately and will be working with me and my family to find the right place to continue competing for championships. I don't agree with the decision and always believed it was going to begin and end in LA. He went on to thank the city of LA, talk about his teammates, and just a very nice message from Cooper Kupp, but basically saying that they plan on moving on from Cooper Kupp. Now, he said that he wants to play next year in 2025. He is going to play next year. He finished the first year of a 3-year contract extension that he signed with the Los Angeles Rams that was paying him $80.1 million. He has a cap hit the next 2 seasons, $29.8 next year and $27.3 in 2026, but only has $5 million guaranteed next year and no guaranteed money on the final year of his deal. So you certainly think that there would be a robust market for a player of Cooper Kupp's caliber, a Super Bowl MVP, a top 15, 20 wide receivers still in the NFL. I still think he has that type of talent. And I think any team that is trying to go all in, trying to push all their chips into the middle, try to win a Super Bowl, they're going to be poking around to see if Cooper Kupp is available. Teams I immediately think of, Buffalo, makes some sense, right? I know they got out of the Stephon Diggs business, but maybe they want a true number one or a really good number two. That's what Cooper Kupp would bring, and I think he would fit right in with what they're trying to do. You think about Houston potentially wanting to add somebody else alongside Stephon Diggs. That would make some sense. The Chargers could potentially make some sense. Maybe the Chiefs try to get a number one wide receiver in the offseason if they go for a four-peat after potentially winning on Sunday. You look around the NFC. I don't know what the appetite would be to trade him within the NFC, but you would think that maybe Green Bay might poke around to get a wide receiver. Maybe Washington tries to pair somebody up with Terry McLaurin. There could be some suitors that line up. I think any team that is trying to go all in, you want Cooper Kupp on your team for the next 2 years. If I'm a team like New England, do I want him to pair with Drake May to give him a superstar wide receiver? I don't know. Maybe I'd rather pay the money to T. Higgins if T. Higgins becomes available and not give up some draft assets and then also pay Cooper Kupp. Maybe I would go that route, right? Or I'd see if maybe a better receiver than Cooper Kupp becomes available. But there are going to be some win now, all-in teams that I think will be all over Cooper Kupp if truly he is available, and I have no reason to think that he is not available. A baseball story. And I hate that I even have to talk about this story, but it's news, and we have to discuss it. Major League Baseball fired umpire Pat Hoiberg for sharing legal sports betting accounts with a friend who was found betting on baseball, and Hoiberg intentionally deleted messages key to the investigation. So MLB said that the umpire in question adamantly denied betting on baseball. Rob Manfred said there was no evidence that the umpire directly bet on games or manipulated the outcome of games, but MLB said they have to uphold the integrity of the game, and so that they needed to fire him. Now, unfortunately, this was widely regarded as one of the best umpires in baseball. There was a World Series game. Oh, let's try to remember when it was. I think Houston was playing in the World Series, and there's a social media account that puts out these ump scorecards that, based on where we know the strike zone is supposed to be, evaluates if the umpire misses any calls, makes good calls, if a call sways because called a ball a strike, does it change the outcome of the at-bat and change the outcome of the entire game? This umpire, Pat Hoiberg, got a perfect score. Didn't miss a single call in a World Series game. Think of the pressure of needing to make those calls in a World Series game, and he was perfect. Didn't miss a single one. That is the umpire that Major League Baseball just had to fire. Now, I'm not saying that you don't fire him. If you found that he was linked to a friend's account, gambling, was betting on baseball, you can't have even a remote connection to it. It can't even be tangentially connected to anybody involved in baseball. You had no choice but to do this. But it's such a bad look for baseball to lose one of their best umpires in the process. Because I got to tell you, there's a lot of umpires who aren't very good. There's a lot of umpires who miss a lot of calls. And this is one umpire who, in the biggest stage of the World Series, the biggest stage in baseball, the World Series, perfect game. Called a perfect game. Didn't miss a single one. And now he had to get fired. Now, the umpire met this friend who was a professional poker player, met him at a poker tournament in 2014. They golfed together, traveled together. And in 2019, when the sports betting became legal in Iowa, the friend opened a legal online betting account with a sports book and then a second legal account with another sports book. Betting on these accounts was only possible from devices located in Iowa. And the umpire asked his friend to place non-baseball sports bets for him using the account to do so. And after that, the friend reportedly gave the umpire the username and password to his account so that the umpire could place bets directly by logging into the account using his own devices on occasion when the friend was not in Iowa. And then deleted all of the messages. Now, the conspiracy theorist in me goes, what was in those messages? Because you can tell me that you didn't find any evidence that he bet on baseball or had an impact on the results of any games. And I got a scorecard that said this guy was pretty good at his job. But deleting text messages, that's not great. That's not a great look. That doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. So Major League Baseball had to make that move yesterday. Speaking of Major League Baseball, can I get a good baseball story for once here to close out the show on the leftovers? It feels like anytime I bring up baseball right now, it's bad. It's an umpire getting fired for being linked to some gambling. And now it is the Hall of Fame votes have been released, or at least some of them. Ichiro Suzuki, who appeared on 393 of the 394 ballots. The 321 voters who allowed their ballots to be made public were made public yesterday. Or today, excuse me. 321 voters, they were made public today. And of those 321 voters who allowed their ballots to be made public, the lone voter who left Ichiro off his ballot, unknown. So still don't know who that person was. I just want an explanation. Because I do think there is an explanation that could at least somewhat make sense, that I could at least justify, that I could try to convince you was a good thing. But if you're not going to come out and own up to it and explain yourself, then it just comes off as you were trying to be that guy or that gal. You were trying to be that person. And when you're trying to be that person and you don't explain yourself, it's a bad look. The rare YouTube chat helping us out with the leftovers, but I did want to get to this, so it's on the list. But the NFL, Roger Goodell met with the media doing his annual, basically, State of the Union of the NFL, and talked about technology and talked about how that they are always looking into ways to improve their game and that they are potentially looking into some tech for placing the balls first down, spotting the football, all of that. That's great, right? That is fantastic. I'd love to see it implemented. And Michael in the YouTube chat mentions tennis, and that's the example that everybody points to when it comes to this tech of a chip being in the ball, allowing us to be able to spot these things correctly. I'd love to see it. I just worry that the same group that allowed us to use index cards to measure the spot won't necessarily implement this in the right way. We need to get to a place where these calls are not up in the air. That I'm able to, and I'll use the tennis example. In tennis, when something gets challenged, it comes up on the big screen within seconds, and you're able to see in or out, and there's no, oh, but if you look at this other camera angle, it kind of looks like the ball might have been out, or it might have been in. The tech is the tech. They use the tech. It gives you an answer, yay or nay, and you move on. That's where the NFL needs to be. A chip in the ball that says they got the first down or they didn't get the first down. Not, we have the chip in the ball, but we're also going to still use the spotters and the camera angles. No. The chip in the ball either gives us a spot or it doesn't give us a spot. And if we challenge it, then we use that technology to see where the ball was, and it is quick. It broke the plane for the first down or it didn't break the plane for the first down. That's it. That's what the NFL needs to get to. And please, I don't need one of these close calls in a Super Bowl. We've already had one a couple of years ago with the holding call in the Super Bowl that people were like, is it holding? Is it not holding? Trust me, been there, done that. We don't need a controversial call in a Super Bowl. We just don't need it. NFL's already got enough problems on their hand with people thinking the game is rigged as it is. That is going to do it for this edition of The Lunch Break. Jim Rome coming up next. Producer Corey, thank you for all that you do. We are back tomorrow. In the meantime, everybody, make it a great rest of your Tuesday. We will see you tomorrow. All right. Thank you, sir. Yes, I am. All right. Thanks, man. All right, YouTube. Appreciate everybody being here. Show's over. You can't hear any of the commercials or anything like that because we're done. But I will be back tomorrow with another edition of The Lunch Break. Appreciate you all as always. See ya.